live with another pandemic sleep tips. And today the topic is yoga sleep, the power of Nidra. And I have Mia Park, who is Chicago Yoga Nidra guru.
Oh gosh, I don't know about guru, but thanks.
So yeah, a lot of people know about you though. Mia is a yoga and meditation teacher in Chicago. And I got to know about her just through a common friend because last month, I think it was, every day you were doing a yoga nidra meditation, and it was on Facebook Live. And this is something that I've talked to my clients about a lot. People ask me often, what should I do when I can't sleep at night? And so one of my suggestions has always been start a yoga nidra practice at that time that you can't sleep, because at least you get some benefit of rest and relaxation, and it's better than sitting there beating yourself up for not being able to sleep, certainly. So I'd love to have someone on to talk more about that. So if you could start just by telling us what yoga nidra is, and how do you say it? Is it nidra?
It's a short I. From what I understand, like I can read Devanagari, the alphabet, a little bit. I'm not a master at all, but from what I understand and how I read it, it's a short I. So it's Nidra.
Nidra.
Nidra,
Okay.
Nidra is a different little thingy. Anyway,
Okay.
so, but it also depends on, I always worry about cultural appropriation, honestly, of I'm not of that tradition. I'm not from India, or that's not my native language. So I pronounce it Nidra. If someone else wants to pronounce it Nidra, who are we to judge? Anyway, it's the proof is in the pudding. So yoga nidra translates to sleep. Yoga nidra in what it has in common with all of nidra, of all yoga practices, like long game, is actually this deeper self-knowledge, the sense of actually knowing deeper parts of yourself. That's really the long game goal. The benefits of attaining this deeper self-knowledge with nidra include resting the body, lowering stress levels by kind of like decreasing the wavelengths of the different like activities of the brain. And when we can decrease our stress levels, we get that cortisol down and all the other kind of like stress hormones and reactions that happen in our physical body. When we can decrease those, there are like a waterfall of health benefits that we can all think about or talk about or look into. But the biggest thing is how you feel. So that's basically it. So Nidra in modern times has become more of like a guided relaxation or a technique to help people physically sleep. And, I'm pretty easygoing. I think that's a fine way for people to approach it. There is a long yoga tradition that is a little more rigid with Nidra. So they kind of command that you're supposed to stay awake, that your physical body sleeps and your brain sleeps, but part of your mind still holds on to the words and the practice. I find that to be, that's fine if you want to work on that, but I feel like a lot of the Nidra practices out there kind of demand that, and I feel like it puts pressure on the practitioner. And I think of yoga nidra as an adaptogen, which means like in homeopathic medicine, it fills in the gaps wherever you need them to be. Like if you're super tired and you fall asleep, great. Or if you need to focus your mind by listening and not falling asleep in your mind, great.
I love that. And actually, I would say, if I had to say what the root cause is for a lot of people not being able to sleep, it truly boils down to not being true to who they are. And so it's beautiful that discovering who you are and the resilience to be who you are would help you sleep better. And that it's cause to sleep. I just love that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that journey that you're talking about of this quest for self-discovery that I really think everyone has, and some of us are a little more active in pursuing that, that shakes out into so many, like it's so individual, that pursuit. It affects people differently, and the journey is so different for everyone. And again, back to the idea of Nidra being an adaptogen, it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this practice, because it really does meet you wherever you are on this journey of, if you want to go long game and kind of get spiritual about it, say self-reflection. But so Richard Miller who's a clinical psychologist, and he formed iRest Yoga Nidra. I am a certified iRest level 1 teacher. His whole path, he got most of his funding from the NIH to work with the military. So the military's intention is not necessarily discover yourself. They're a little bit more pragmatic of how to help veterans heal specifically. And so I really like Richard Miller's approach to it. Like, he told us during the training that he calls Yoga Nidra, he's got like 7 names for it. It's something like iRest, Yoga Nidra, guided relaxation, meditation, sleep. And depending on wherever he teaches, he changes the name. So if he's going to like a medical clinic, he'll call it iRest. And if he's going to a yoga clinic, he'll call it Yoga Nidra. And if he's going to a Buddhist place, he'll call it like guided relaxation. So I love his approach, because I feel like with a lot of yoga traditions, it gets so dogmatic and this is the way it's supposed to be, and it has been. And quite frankly, I'm like down with the patriarchy in yoga, especially with something as organic as Nidra, because it's such an individual process. I don't think there's any one right way to do it. I don't think there's any one great time to do it. I don't think there's any one perfect length. It is completely individual. So I appreciate Richard Miller's, he just makes it modern and approachable for everybody.
I love that. And it's different for everyone, but it's also different for all of us at different times in our lives as well, right? Like, at some point, some things work for you and then they don't work and something else does. Or at different lengths. At some point, I might need 10 minutes and sometimes I might need an hour.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know, are you still busy even though we're self-quarantining somehow? Like, I feel like everyone's still really busy.
Right.
Like, I think, right? So like, I think that pressure pushes our defaults to the surface. And so if you are like prone to anxiety, like you're really anxious now, or if you're prone to being a couch potato, you are the couchiest potatoist person right now, right? So I feel like, again, Nidra being the adaptogen, even though we're really busy, I really feel like Nidra is going to help level out whatever default of ours is pushed to the surface, because our dysfunctional defaults are really pushed to the surface right now too. So like, I tend to keep myself really busy. So I'm like super busy. Like, why am I so busy? Are you kind of a busy person?
I'm exactly, you called it exactly. I actually was talking yesterday, we talked about self-compassion, and she mentioned something about, you're really active, you're out here doing this. And I was like, yeah, but a lot of that's my avoidance technique of having to sit silently with myself. Like, I'm really busy, I'm putting all this content out. So I'm trying to be aware of that and balance it a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good to, again, it's all good, no judgment. We're all just doing the best that we can, especially now, right?
Right. Yep. So you kind of already answered this, but how often do you say people need to practice consistently to start noticing some improvement in their sleep?
I think that one good practice can really change things. I feel like usually, I think there's a general rule of thumb of 3 times a week is where you can start to see improvements. Like, I would say minimum twice a week, 3 times might be average. It really depends. Like, gosh, there was a point where I was doing it like 5 days a week. I remember, I'm also an actress. I was in a very stressful play, and it was a hit play. Like, we ran for 6 months. We kept extending. And I didn't go on stage for like the first hour or something. So I'd go there, get dressed up in my costume, and do a 27-minute Nidra on the dressing room floor, because all the other actors were on stage. So I did the same Nidra practice, because we were like 5 days a week. 5 days a week, same Nidra practice for 6 months. Like, literally, because I needed it. And so I would get on stage and be centered and focused,
That's nice.
It was nice to get into a routine when you're kind of in those moments of stress. So again, I needed the 5 days a week. Now with the COVID, with the pandemic, I'm probably doing like 2 to 4 times a week right now. Yeah. So it depends on the individual.
One of my friends told me that you put her to bed every night.
Oh gosh, that's great. I do talk a lot and I'm very boring, so I'm glad I can help.
Your voice is very calming. And just so people know, we'll post, actually, I'll just post it right now. Mia did several videos as a service last month. She did, I forget how many, 20 or so?
It was 30
Nidras?
days.
30 days. And so they're all in her Facebook page, and you can reference those. So it's a great way to start your practice. And if you have any questions, I see all of these people jumping on. So hi, Dina, and hi, Jill. And I hope Stella's watching too, Paula. But if you have any questions, make sure you put these in here, and I'll make sure we address those at some point as well. So how do you recommend people start a Yoga Nidra practice?
I think starting with again, it's very personal. If 20 minutes sounds like a doable new thing for you to do, all of my practices happen to be 20 minutes because to me, I feel like that's a long enough time to get a good Nidra practice in, and it also seems like doable. Just start with the shorter practice. To me, 20 minutes is like average. There are 10-minute practices out there, 15-minute practices. I feel like most of them are between 20 and 30. So anyways, they start with, say, 20 minutes. If you are someone prone to anxiety or have a lot of sensitivity towards relaxing, because Nidra is very healing, especially for people who are handling trauma. And we're all in the middle of this traumatic event right now, and we're all handling it in different ways. Some people come to the Nidra practice with a higher history, a more intense history. You might want to listen to the recording before you lay down and practice it. If the intention's not to get triggered doing Nidra, but that happens. That happens. So if you feel sensitive, you might want to just listen to it and see if this works for you. If you want to just go for it. Honestly, I think for like 98% of the people, you can just lay down and try it.
Yeah.
Lay down. You want to be comfortable. Some people like practicing sitting up. When I practiced with Richard Miller, he even told us to stand up. I love his adoption. He was just like, adaptability. What's that word? Anyway, he would be like, practice standing, practice walking, practice, whatever. So, but mostly it's practice lying down. You want to keep warm because your body temperature can drop. Usually something under the knees helps people because people can hyperextend the back of their knees, or having something like a pillow or folded up towel under the knees can help relax the low back. Just like I don't even practice on a yoga. I did a Nidra earlier today. I just threw a blanket on the floor, lay down on the floor, had something supporting my low back, threw a towel or another blanket on top, and that's it. So I can practice. There are different kinds. When you get familiar, you can start to practice on your own. And especially when you're going to sleep, there are different kinds of Nidra practices that you can do to yourself to help you sleep. Like I count backwards from 108 breaths. And is that technically a Yoga Nidra practice? Yes, no. A traditionalist will say no, but there's no law. There's no Yoga Nidra police. Some yoga teachers want there to be, like there's really not. Anyway, but if you were new, then I recommend obviously listening to a recording. There are many Nidra practices out there with music, and that might work for you. I never play music because I think that can be distracting to having this internal experience. That being said, one of the Nidra recordings on my Facebook page, the tsingzas, the little bells, there's a part of the practice called rotation of consciousness where I name different body parts and you relax it. And I rang a bell at each point because I just wanted to see if that practice would benefit people. So that's out there. But so in addition to my practice, so there might be bells and stuff. But anyway, in addition to my practices, if you go to Spotify or just Google Yoga Nidra practice, there are gobs of free practices online. Some by men, some by women, some with different accents. Like there's an Australian Swami who I love practicing with because Australian accent. So it's so relaxing to me.
I do Headspace because I love his accent.
Right, exactly. So sometimes, and it speaks to whoever. Sometimes I've practiced Nidra in French. I do not speak French. So do you know what I mean? Sometimes there's Korean. I'm Korean. Yeah. There's Korean Yoga Nidra. So you really just have to get out there, practice, and see what works for you.
So you mentioned counting back from 108, and I know that number is used a lot in chanting. Is that the reason you start with 108, or Do you have any more
Yeah.
to say around 108 that people might not be aware of?
Oh, 108 is this holy number in a lot of traditions like Buddhism and in what we call Hinduism or Hindu, and a lot of kind of like the Vedas are these ancient tomes of knowledge, and a lot of current spiritual practices have stemmed from the Vedas, like well, Vedanta, a lot of yoga practices, a lot of Buddhist practices. I think Jainism, if I'm pronouncing it right. Anyway, a lot of these spiritual practices that are based on these Vedic books often have 108 as a sacred number. I don't know why. I don't know if anybody knows why. But it is said that 108 lengths of the Earth is the distance from the Earth to the moon.
Okay.
There's a lot of these magical,
Nice.
reasons.
Yeah. And what was I again? I'll ask you Gina's question because I can't remember mine. And that is, can you do Nidra at different times of the day or only before bed?
Well, one yogic framework has it done between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. That has to do with the Ayurvedic clock of the body. So, Ayurveda is the ancient science of self healing, as yoga is the ancient science of self knowledge. So, per Ayurveda, between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., actually between 2 and 6 a.m. and p.m. is what we call a vata time of day. It's kind of vata. This is very, very general. Vata is likened towards this kind of wind energy. So it is said it's a good time to do Nidra between 2 and 6 p.m. to kind of like ground yourself and relax during this time where you may have a predisposition towards being a little bit like wind energy. Again, I'm totally generalizing. That being said, the best time to do Nidra is whenever you want.
Okay.
I mean,
Good.
some people say it depends on your disposition. Like if you're a real energetic person like me, if I do Nidra too late in the day, sometimes I can't sleep at night because it's like taking a power nap at like 7 p.m. and then you try to go to bed at 10. So I tend to do it. I usually do it before 6 p.m. But I was trained in some kind of like traditional yoga paradigms I don't prescribe to anymore, but it's a habit now. So that's why I try to do it before 6 because that's how I was trained originally. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
so Dina, try and see what happens for you personally, probably. And Nidhi just clarified, I think, what you meant, Jainism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nidhi knows I struggle with pronunciation. So we have some help here from people. And then I guess one thing I wanted to mention is just I really appreciate that you mentioned trauma. And for some people, any type of meditation can be triggering. So if you have experienced trauma and you're not aware of that, that is normal. So that's not something that's weird about you if you get triggered during a meditation or a yoga practice. That happens.
No,
And you might want to do a practice actually with someone that's trained in working with trauma, people that have experienced trauma, instead of doing it on your own.
Yeah, and I do want to say my qualification for all of that is that triggering is not a bad thing. I mean, when we get triggered, it means that part of ourselves is ready to be integrated. So I do not recommend running away from being triggered. I recommend having the fortitude to sit with yourself while this thing is happening or coming up and doing your best to just hold on and then integrate. It's about, when people say get over it, it's not sustainable to get over anything. It's not over, it's through. And going through something means integrating it. And Yoga Nidra, in my experience, has been one of the most powerful ways to integrate my life and who I am. So again, I think triggering, we don't want to intentionally do that if you're not ready for it, but it's not a bad thing. It's scary, but it's not bad.
Yeah. So I think those were most of my questions. Are there any other questions from people that are listening in right now? If not, are you doing any virtual classes that people can sign up for right now? Or what do you do one-on-one? What do you do normally? And what are you able to do right now, I guess, should be my question.
So pre-pandemic, I was teaching a restorative yoga and yoga nidra class once a month at Yoga View Studio. I also teach private clients, and I teach yoga nidra teacher trainings, usually at Yoga View in the spring and at Nature Yoga Studio in the fall. However, since this happened in March, those are all canceled. The workshops, the teacher training, and that. So right now, what I'm doing is I still have private clients that I see kind of like virtually this way. So I am still doing that. I'm not teaching any virtual classes now because I'm putting together my Yoga Nidra teacher training to an online format. So
Okay.
not only is that a way, and I'm charging a lot less than the studios are, not only is that a way to spread the knowledge of Yoga Nidra to still empower people to teach it and practice it. Because I think I had, they canceled it weeks and weeks before it started. And I think there's already 12 people signed up or something like that, So rather than make those people wait until the fall, I want to do this online. And also, honestly, it's a way for me to make income since I'm also a professional actress and that industry stopped.
Yeah.
So like a large chunk of the way I usually make money is not happening right now. But it's okay. I'm actually enjoying the time off from my normal life. But yeah, anyway, so that's what I'm offering now. Again, if people want to practice the Nidra, they can just go to my Facebook page or my yoga website page. There's free recordings there too.
Okay. So you said Facebook or your website? Is that the second? Okay. And so I'll link those in here as well. And Dina looks like she's already interested in signing up for the online class when it's available. So we have more people and more support from Jill too. She was really vibing with a lot of the things you were saying throughout.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Jill.
So, all right. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks.
And just for everyone else, we have a couple more of these coming up. They're not on the calendar yet, but we're going to have one on Thursday for sure, where we talk about movement, the importance of movement for sleep. And tomorrow or maybe next week, we're still finalizing the time. We're going to have a discussion about meditation and just specifically talking about meditation. We've referred to it in a lot of these, but haven't had a specific discussion. So watch those. And all of these are downloaded to YouTube. So you can go to pandemicsleeptips.com and it will bring you directly to the playlist with all of these sleep tips. So just play with these things, integrate what you hear from different teachers that you have here and see what works for you. Like I love what Mia said, there's no yoga nidra police and there's really no sleep police either that say this is what you need to do to fall asleep.
Oh my gosh, do whatever works.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on and introducing you to the group. Make sure you go back to that link and check out her videos. It's a great way to start your practice right away. And I think her voice is very calming. It's perfect for me.
Thanks.
So,
Well, thank you,
right.
Amy. Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.